If there's any continent in this world that has a demographic dividend, it's Africa. Period. Nowhere else.
Customer experience wisdom, a dash of travel talk. We've been cleared for takeoff. The best meals are served outside and require a passport. A new country for today's episode. I love getting new perspectives. I am thrilled to introduce our first guest from Ghana, Kojo Hayford. Kojo is the founder and CEO of eSAL LLC, leading the charge in business process outsourcing and customer experience transformation in Africa. With over 3 decades of experience, Kojo has built and nurtured technology-enabled startups across industries like energy distribution, digital health, and financial services. His mission? To open new frontiers for global brands in Africa and empower the youth of his vibrant continent. He described himself to me as, quote, an evangelist of a new sub-Saharan destinations for business. I am so excited to get a CX perspective from a new country. Kojo, welcome to CX Passport.
Thanks a lot, Rick. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
I am deeply looking forward to this, as the smile on my face shows. I do want to start with a wide lens. What do you see? What's the current state of customer experience in Ghana? What are trends now and what you're seeing on the horizon?
I have a Pan-African perspective. So I'd really talk about, the Pan-African as a destination or Pan-Africa as a destination, of which Ghana is just one piece of that puzzle. And typically, and I'll look at two locations that are gaining a lot of attention globally. As India and the Philippines become mature, and on the African continent where you have North Africa, which is basically Morocco and Egypt, and South Africa become really not mature destinations. Global brands and their service providers are beginning to look at new frontiers, new destinations. COVID has probably even accelerated that. And, Africa is now on the map. What is more interesting is that global brands are tiptoeing into Africa. Some of the more aggressive ones have already set foot. So if you look at some of the very big tier one companies, they've already established a footprint. Some acquisitions recently has positioned the likes of Concentrix and TP in locations like Ghana and Kenya. Now, and I look at Africa basically as two regions: West Africa, which is close to 16, 17 countries that has both English, French, and Spanish. And then East Africa, that I would say the center of gravity is in Kenya, that has predominantly English as well. What I see is, yes, global brands are looking for global English, the standard labor arbitrage. But what I see as an emerging trend is that global brands are also looking at, for example, in these two regions, you've got 974 million population. Let's take 30% of them as an addressable market. That's a huge market for global brands to sell into. What global brands are going to realize is to sell into these markets, you have to have some cultural alignment, and you will be faced with language barriers because now you're selling to customers who are not speaking your language, but you need to sell to them. And therefore, from a CS perspective, you need to be able to connect with them in the language of their choice or in the language,
Yeah.
the dominant languages. And I think sometimes we in the West, or the West, basically paints Africa with one brush, okay?
Right.
To say, hey, you've got thousands of languages. No. most of Africa can be broken into dominant ethnic groups and dominant languages, and therefore you should be able to, with a few languages in specific regions, you should have that reach.
That's something that is not intuitive to me. One, I am one of those that can find myself guilty of painting Africa as just a singular entity, right? It's just Africa. When we're talking about an incredibly diverse, geographically diverse, culturally diverse, linguistically diverse continent, and so in the West we can be guilty of that. And you're also saying though that actually there's ways to segment Africa in a way that makes it simpler to understand. How have you helped brands or individuals even like me from the West understand both that wide spectrum of cultural differences and how to operate in some of the segments that you're describing?
Look, you can, what, 52, 62 countries were borders that were created in 1817
Yeah.
in Berlin, in Europe. Okay? So
Mm-hmm.
you would have, you know, an ethnic group that has a border in between or a line drawn in between, and they speak
Mm-hmm.
the same language. They are the same set of people. So if you take those barriers away, you can begin to, it's almost like going back and saying these large tribal groupings or large ethnic groupings should be really what, where the borders should be. So
Mm-hmm.
if you did it that way, you begin to, and I'm not by any stretch saying that you don't have pockets of minor languages. Look, it's
Mm-hmm.
happened in Europe.
Sure.
Certain languages have died in Europe because the dominant ethnic group, and I want to use ethnic group globally, have superimposed their languages. Some people
Mm-hmm.
speak in German today. I mean, look, if you look at what is happening in Ukraine. You have ethnic Russians saying,
Yes.
"Hey, this part is also ours." So
Yeah.
this is real. So when you look at it that way, and I'll give a good use case. BBC has World Service has a language component, and they've recognized this a long time ago. If they had to communicate to Africans, then they're going to communicate in some of those dominant languages. So you have BBC in Swahili. That
Mm-hmm.
probably covers close to 200 to 300 million people who are speaking the same language. You have BBC Hausa. BBC Hausa basically says the Sahel region of West Africa is predominantly speaking Hausa, the Hausa language. And then when you come to the south, and I'll call the Gulf of Guinea in West Africa, you see three or four dominant languages. Two of them or
Okay.
three of them in Nigeria, a couple of them in Ghana, and a couple of them in Senegal.
I so
So
that
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. We do have a bit
So,
of a
so
lag,
the
listeners and
issue
viewers.
is,
Yeah.
if you want to be relevant to these cultural, in terms of selling products and services, those, you have to do the math and do the metric. And for example, in Ghana, yeah, their English is the official languages. Chi or Akan is the most prevalently spoken language because the largest ethnic group's language has held sway. Okay? It
Yeah.
is what it is. We don't call it the national language, but practically everybody can speak it, even if it's broken.
Normally, this is where you would hear the CX Passport captain, but today I want to give you a little something different. I'm going to be taking a couple of weeks away from CX Passport. Got some vacation coming up, got a kid to move back into university, and so going to take a little break here. There are plenty of episodes for you to peruse from before if you haven't had a chance to listen or see those. I'll be back in a couple of weeks. Until then, enjoy some of those old episodes or take a break yourself. And we'll be back together traveling on the next CX Passport flight here in just a few short weeks. Yeah, and I think that's the lesson that I'm taking away from just this little portion of our conversation, and that is, yeah, an outsider looking at the region, someone who's not well versed in it, might look at things like you're describing, official language or something along those lines. But it's getting down, it's getting deep, it's getting understanding the cultural realities that span borders, that span cities, span governments, and really understanding if you're trying to be a business operating in there. That's a question that I did want to ask you about, because a lot of times when folks are thinking about the work overseas, and in the context of if say you're a US or a European country and you're working in Africa, you're thinking, okay, it's outsourcing. You, though, have talked to me a little bit about it's not just how these businesses in Africa can serve the West. This is about selling into Africa. Are you seeing more of that rather than just using the region as a way for cost arbitrage, but rather a market for goods and services of countries of companies outside of the region?
Okay, today everybody talks about Africa as the destination, the next frontier. And it's not just the next frontier for resources and extractive industry, it's the next frontier for markets to sell into because the demographics are clear. If there's any continent in this world that has a demographic dividend, it's Africa, period. Nowhere else. I mean, that's it.
I love it. I almost feel like there's way too many other things that I want to ask you about, but wouldn't that be like just end right there? Boom. Like what a absolute nail it of that. I do want to, and I think that's an important point of understanding. Look, there is a rich opportunity that you're describing. That's part of why I love having voices like yours on the show to help teach me about those opportunities, and the listeners and viewers as well. I want to get
Right.
a little more specific about Ghana specifically, something that you had talked to me, and whether it's Ghana or beyond, you had mentioned that content management and content moderation are an area
Right.
of opportunity. Why is this important to the Ghana region?
Okay. I mean, and to Ghana and to the wider
Mm,
African context. Content today is being generated not just in English or European languages.
mm,
So if you have a TikTok content and those who are generating that content want to reach their audience in the country of origin, they're going to deliver that content in the language of their audience,
mm,
period. Now, if it's on a platform like TikTok, it is a global platform, and therefore TikTok is now mindful of the kind of content that is being delivered on their platform, and therefore they need to be moderated and managed. And who else is going to be able to do it? It's not going to be done in China. It
it's going to
has
be,
to be done on the continent. And it
it's
has
got
to
to
be
be done
done with
local.
people
Yeah.
who actually understand not only the language, but the nuances.
Great point there, right? Because going back to that comment about the officialness versus the reality, even when I speak very very limited Spanish, but I'm speaking textbook Spanish, and that's why when
Right.
I'm in Puerto Vallarta, when I'm in Mexico City, I have trouble understanding because I only know the textbook language. You'd have to have someone local who especially in a context of TikTok, right? People aren't speaking formal language in TikTok. They're speaking their casual
Precisely.
style. Yeah.
Precisely. And then throw that in the fact that now they're speaking in their own language or
Yeah.
dialect
Yeah.
or slang or whatever it
Yeah.
is.
Heck,
You know,
there's folks that joke that they can't understand the way that folks speak in my state, Texas. So it's even inside the language
well,
itself. So
I'll give you one. You know, when we started this business, we used to say, look, we're getting ready for prime time. Now, prime time is when the phone is picked up or you pick up a phone or a call and it's a Texan,
The-
and you're trying to speak this British English, and he's going to tell you that speak English, God damn it. Okay, and you think you're speaking pristine English,
Pristine. Now, Kojo, I
or
don't think
whatever
I
it
would
is,
be
the
so.
Queen's English.
Yeah. I don't think I would be so impolite. I do have my politeness, but yes, I think absolutely. Okay? So let's talk about that for a little bit, because the BPO industry in general, whether it's contact center or just process outsourcing or technology outsourcing, we see it continue to migrate across the globe. A particular region will be in favor, and then it'll fall out of favor as another grows in interest. How can Ghana, where
Yeah,
you are right now, how can Ghana position itself to be a region of choice, not just for now, but for a long-term
yeah.
future?
Well, let's look at a few of the attributes that we have. The attributes are our location. Okay, longitude zero. We are on the Greenwich Meridian, right
Okay.
smack here. So we are in longitude zero, and just 15 degrees above zero. So really, technically, we are in the center of the world.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we are 5 hours. What's it called? 4 to 5 hours, depending on. One of these days, they have to cancel this business of daylight savings. But 4 hours from New York, okay. Uh, yeah, I'm sorry. It's a farce.
We're getting real now.
4 hours. Yeah, we are the ones who change this. Anyway, 4 hours from New York, so you can pretty much manage continental U.S. And let's be clear, the market is in North America. We are basically real time Europe. No question about
Right.
that. Real time, 1 hour, 2 hours max. I'm not counting the Soviet Union because they've got 12 time zones, so that's a different story
Right.
altogether. And we don't have a history of Russian speaking, so that's not a market we're ever going to play in
Okay.
yet. That you can never tell. So that's it. Also, because of how we're positioned, we have multilingual capabilities. West
Okay.
Africa is predominantly French. Apart from Ghana, Nigeria, Gambia, it's predominantly French. So in Ghana, you speak French as a third language in school. First
Okay.
language is English as the official language. So we can deliver multilingual. Now, because of movement of young people, because it's a young people's business across borders, we can pick up some Spanish as well, because you have countries like Equatorial Guinea that speak Spanish as well. So multilingual. If you go to East, well, so that's Ghana. We can scale both English and French without batting an eye. And yeah. So those are the attributes. Look, I mean, in terms of it's still an emerging destination, but I think the jury is out in terms of the fact that once you have some of the tier one buyers of services, big tech, for example, and their tier one service providers establishing a delivery footprint, what it means is, okay, it's being greenlit by the buyers, and their service providers have set shop. What we need to do as a country for the long term is for our governments to embrace it. Very similar to what India has done and the Philippines have done very successfully. Now, and Ghana will also want to position ourselves as a hub in West Africa.
We joked about the daylight savings aspect of it and thinking about New York. And I know that you do plenty of flying around the globe, both for fun, but also clearly for business as well. And when you're flying like that, it's nice to take a little break in the lounge. And that's what I want to invite you to do today. I want you to join me here in the first class lounge. We'll move quickly here, have a little bit of fun. What is a dream travel location of yours from the past?
The dream travel location from the past is Malaysia, but not just Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur,
Hmm.
rural Malaysia.
Ooh,
Be-
okay.
be- right, because I saw the commonalities of what I saw in rural Malaysia to rural Ghana. Okay.
Oh.
I was fascinated because Malaysia grows palm oil. I think they're the world's largest palm
Hmm.
oil producer. Well, guess what? The story goes that the palm oil was picked up in Ghana or in West Africa hundreds of years ago. And it was fascinating traveling rural Malaysia and just seeing all these
Huh.
palm plantations.
Oh, that's kind of
So
cool. Okay.
it left an indelible mark,
Yeah. I
yeah.
like the connection point there. That's a lot of fun. Going forward, what is a dream travel location you've not been to yet?
Oh, Japan and rural Japan as well.
Yeah. Boy, I'm hearing Japan a lot,
Japan.
and full recommend. Great place to go. I didn't do as much of the rural. My son did because he stayed there. Sorry, listeners and viewers. I know you're tired of hearing that, but he studied abroad there and got much more of that cultural exposure. Even there's a bit of a story that he stayed with a elderly couple when he was unable to stay in his college dorm there. So there's a story there. So he definitely got the real experience.
Oh
Um,
yes,
and so I definitely encourage you to get over there to Japan for sure.
I will.
What is a favorite thing of yours to eat?
Okay, now this is a difficult one, and I'll tell you why. Because I'm not going to mention a food. It's
Oh,
I have an adventurous and explorative palate. So anything
okay.
fusion, okay,
All
anything
right.
fusion, I will, you know, tell me that I'm going to eat Japanese, African, Afro Japanese fusion. I'm there.
I like it. And I can't wait to see you open that restaurant or tell me where to find one because Afro Japanese might be kind of cool. All right. I'm down with
And
that.
let me tell you that we already have the name. It's called Kojoji.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, man. The one with Kajoji. We may have our title here, folks.
Yeah,
I got to go
we
the other
do.
direction with you, Kojo. What is one thing that you were forced to eat growing up that you hated as a kid?
Okay, so I come from, fairly religious, when I say religious, religious in the Christian sense of the word,
Okay.
and therefore every Friday was fish.
Yep.
I I I hated Fridays. So
Oh,
so
you, you're
but fast forward to today, fish is my favorite.
yeah. It's kind of funny that there would be a food that created you disliking a particular day of the week that is often the most favored day of the week, but you were dreading that Friday. I love it. Co-
Absolutely, I got it Friday.
we are going to have to get back on the plane and start traveling here again. So, what is one travel item, not including your phone and not including your passport, that you will not leave home without?
So I guess it still will be phone related, but anything that will allow me to listen to music.
Kojo, I'm the same way. I've got to have my music, absolutely, and it takes you away, it brings you in. It's absolutely a required
Yeah,
element to a trip. So I'm totally with you there. I want to go
yeah,
back, and you alluded to this a little bit. So frequently, if we think back, like kind of the decades and the origin of the BPO world, it often starts with IT services, or historically, it started that way.
right.
So, how can the BPO industry continue to grow from IT services further into a customer experience play?
Well, I think at the end of the day, somewhere in this, you said IT services. So at the end of the day, there is a customer at the end of the service. You
There,
know,
yep. Uh-huh.
you can do all of those back office things. You're trying to help the end customer. And and I think if we see the industry as a people-centered industry, because that's what it is, you know,
Mm,
this move from India to the Philippines and now to Africa. Unfortunately, we talk about labor arbitrage, kind of has a bad connotation, but it is what it is. At the end of the day, it's about people, young people, and I think the industry offers an opportunity for young people to have either their first experience of real work and hopefully to transform their capabilities for other pieces of work everywhere else. Because I think, it will start as IT, but ultimately IT underpins the service that we provide. And when the rubber hits the pavement, it's about people, and it's not just that you're talking to somebody.
mm-hmm.
If I'm moderating content, there's a human being behind. And today we are hearing AI, AI, AI. I think AI itself is generating more demand for people to, actually, what we are saying that now we are teaching AI or bots to be able to, we're teaching them to take over our jobs, isn't it?
Yeah, we certainly say that. We do. Kojo, I'm not convinced that it. Well, who knows? Maybe it will end
I'm
up
not
being
convinced
the.
either.
Yeah, maybe the apocalypse. I don't know, but right now I'm not convinced there yet. I know that it is certainly something that is assisted. Heck, it assists me, and I know it's assisted a
Yeah.
lot of businesses.
Yeah.
I like your the way you brought that perspective of, hey, it's not a matter of evolving from IT services to customer experience. It's understanding that at the end of all of these services, whatever the label, that there's a customer involved, and having that as a mindset rather than necessarily an industry or a skill niche, and how that can launch someone's career starting in this BPO space as a young person moving into it and then moving ultimately on into other elements of a career. I want to close out with you, Kojo, talking about not just Ghana, not just Sub-Saharan, not even just Africa. You have this global awareness, global customers, global employees. How are you driving that understanding and cultural alignment when you're talking about a global customer and global employee?
If I understand your question right, we start off with these young people that we bring into an environment, and essentially we tell them you are in competition with everybody else in the world. You are in a global environment, and therefore your outlook has to be global. Okay. And we,
Okay.
we keep on saying things like, we won. Nothing will please me more than to see a young person that comes through our gets transformed in this business, jumps on a plane, gets to New York, and it hits the ground running in any job. Well, obviously, with the subject matter that he's already been skilled in, and hit the ground running in any place. And I'm using New York as just an example.
Sure.
So from word go, you are in a global environment with standards that are global and globally defined. And therefore, by virtue of the location you are operating in, you're not giving substandard. Even if you are delivering service to a local company, you have to give them global service delivery. And I think that's
I
very important.
Okay, I really like that. That's not where I thought this question would go, and I
Was
like where
going.
it
I didn't
went
understand it.
instead. No, I really like that, Kojo, because it fits at what, even at a customer experience level, what folks will say is, look, don't compare yourself to other quick service restaurants. Compare yourself to the best customer experiences that are out there, because that's what your customer is doing. They aren't comparing Wendy's to McDonald's. They're comparing Wendy's to some other experience that they have with Zappos or something along those lines, or pick a brand that isn't kind of the old tired cliche. And your point of, it doesn't matter if you are in Ghana or if you're in Kenya or if you're in Argentina or if you're in Ukraine, you are a member of a global community with global customers with global expectations. And the need is to deliver on those global expectations. And I find that statement particularly brilliant, Kojo.
No, and that has been our mantra. I mean, we keep on saying, look, consider yourself as a global employee. You want to be able to be anywhere. Look, I mean, I'll give you an example. There's this sort of terminology in the industry that says staff augmentation. What does staff augmentation means? I'm sitting in Ghana, but I'm part of a team in, Peoria, Texas. Is there a place like that?
No, it's Illinois, right? But
Illinois.
Peoria is Illinois. It's
Yeah,
still, yeah.
I've just shown my ignorance, but it's okay.
Well, actually, there might be a Peoria, Texas. I don't know. There might be.
But yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, so to be able to play as a team there, it's not just your skills that you have. You are working a team of people that come from different backgrounds.
I love it.
You know,
We're going to end it
yeah.
right there, Kojo. That is, I love that we're kind of closing on that local reality, global experience. That's the reality of the world in which we live right now. Kojo, if folks wanted to get to know a little bit more about you or about eSAL, what's the best way for them to come to know more about you or your company?
So eSAL actually means eServices Africa Limited. Okay,
Okay.
that's the original LLC. So you can find us on my LinkedIn page, and maybe I'll share that with you, and it will be www.esalsolutions.com.
Awesome. I will get that, both Kojo's LinkedIn URL and eSal's URL, into the show notes. Kojo, it's been a fun ride here. I've enjoyed, really, as I said at the beginning, I just was excited to get a new perspective from a new country. I like that you took me beyond the country and you took me into the region, into the continent, and also helped me understand that even something as wide as a continent like Africa can find ways of segmentation that help it be better understood by folks that are looking to operate in this, as you said, incredibly rich opportunity region of the world. It was a delight today, Kojo. Thank you for being on CX Passport.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for joining us this week on CX Passport. If you like today's episode, I have 3 quick next steps for you. Click subscribe on the CX Passport YouTube channel or your favorite podcast app. Next, leave a comment below the video or a review in your favorite podcast app so others can find and enjoy CX Passport too. Then head over to cxpassport.com for show notes and resources that can help you create tangible business results by delivering great customer experience. Until next time, I'm Rick Denton, and I believe the best meals are served outside and require a passport.